The story unfolds on a quiet train platform, just like any other weekday morning at 6:58 a.m. The protagonist, on his usual commute to Maibara, catches sight of a familiar face, a girl who attends a different school. He knows nothing about her, except that they always board the same train. His attention is often drawn to her, but today feels different. For the first time, she's sitting right next to him, and the proximity stirs a nervousness in him that he hasn't felt before. Despite rehearsing questions in his head every day, what her name might be, or which club she's part of, he's never managed to gather enough courage to speak to her. His silent admiration for her has now spanned months, each morning marked by a 20-minute train ride filled with unspoken feelings. This quiet, one-sided infatuation began when he first started high school. He's not alone in this unspoken journey. A few regular passengers on the train have noticed his affection and are silently cheering him on, hoping he'll finally muster the courage to make a move. It all started about 4 months ago, when the protagonist first realized that the girl always boarded the train at the same time. From her school uniform, he guessed that she might be a student at Rakuta High School. 3 months ago, she missed the train for the first time, and the 3 passengers who had been following his quiet pursuit were surprised to see him searching for her, as if he couldn't believe she wasn't there. A month later, she sat beside him for the first time, and he was overwhelmed with nervous excitement, trying hard to suppress a smile so he wouldn't appear strange. The 3 passengers, having noticed the boy's obvious joy, were certain that he had fallen for her. Their shared interest in this budding, silent romance had even led them to create a chat group where they could discuss the situation. One of them, an older man who worked as a manager, was growing increasingly frustrated with the boy's lack of action, wondering how he could keep waiting to confess his feelings. The office lady in the group defended the boy, saying the suspense was part of the charm, while the university student chimed in, acknowledging that confessing isn't as easy as it seems. He even teased the manager, suggesting that he'd understand the difficulty better if he confessed to the office lady right then and there. Taking the joke too far, the manager sent a message to the group, admitting he always kept an eye on her. When the office lady caught the meaning, her horrified expression made him quickly backtrack, saying it was just a joke. But it was too late. She hinted she might not take the train the next day. The university student remarked that confessing feelings out of the blue could make anyone cautious, a realization that brought the group to think about the boy's situation. They assumed he must be worried that if he didn't act soon, the girl might stop taking the train altogether. The protagonist was indeed thinking the same thing. If the girl was a junior at Rakutu, she might stop riding this train by next spring. He knew that if he wanted to get to know her, he'd have to talk to her soon. This thought weighed on him heavily, making him wish their situation wasn't so awkward and complicated. He fantasized about how much simpler it would be if they could just chat like regular passengers. Meanwhile, the university student enthusiastically suggested that the boy should ask for her phone number, which led the other 2 passengers to speculate that this must be his usual approach with girls. Unaware of the trio's ongoing chat, the protagonist wrestled with the idea of approaching her. After months of silence, it felt odd to suddenly strike up a conversation. He needed to think of a natural topic. At the same time, the university student messaged the group, suggesting that the boy could talk about anything, but he would only get one chance to make a good first impression. Just as he was deep in thought, the boy noticed something surprising. Letting out a startled cry, he caught everyone's attention, including the girls. The passengers in the chat group scrambled to understand his sudden outburst. The university student finally pointed out what had caught his eye. The girl had a keychain on her bag of Cheyenne, a character from the popular online game Genshin. The office lady quickly notices that the protagonist and the girl both have the same keychain. Although she finds it exciting, the university student thinks it's not unusual since the game the keychain represents has become very popular. After gathering his courage, the protagonist apologizes for his sudden outburst, and, while stuttering a little, nervously asks the girl if she also enjoys playing Genshin. However, before the girl can answer, an old man sitting directly in front of him responds instead, enthusiastically sharing that he too likes the game. The group chat, observing the scene, is less than thrilled about the old man's interruption, as the question wasn't directed toward him. Despite the group's disappointment, the old man continues to comment on the situation, remarking on the strange coincidence, and then asks the protagonist about his rank in the game. The boy feels disheartened by the misunderstanding, especially after working up the courage to start the conversation. To make matters worse, the old man shifts his attention to the girl, asking her about the keychain on her bag. This unexpected twist leaves everyone in the group chat stunned once again. Hesitantly, the girl admits that she does enjoy the game, but only started playing recently because of its growing popularity. Before the boy can respond, the old man interjects again, saying that her motivation for playing doesn't matter and that she shouldn't feel the need to compare herself to others. The girl, though slightly taken aback, politely replies that she genuinely enjoys the game's cute characters, while quietly appreciating how kind the old man seems. Meanwhile, everyone in the group chat eagerly waits to see what will happen next. The protagonist, feeling another burst of confidence, asks the girl if she would like to play the game with him, hinting that their shared interests must be fate. The chat group reacts with excitement at his boldness, with the manager praising his courage and the office lady anticipating the girl's reply. The university student feels hopeful that this might be a chance for the boy and the girl to exchange contact information and connect more deeply. But just before the girl can respond, the old man shyly interrupts once again, asking if the boy also wants to play the game with him. The group nearly explodes with frustration at the old man's interference. The office lady grows annoyed at his smug attitude, while the manager silently begs for him to realize what's happening between the boy and the girl. Ignoring the tension around him, the old man casually shares his contact information with the protagonist. The boy, still recovering from the series of unexpected turns, is further surprised to learn that the old man is getting off at the same train station as him. Despite the chaotic turn of events, the group chat agrees that the day has been quite exciting. The university student is happy for the boy, feeling that he made a real effort to connect with his crush and find common ground, while the office lady reflects on how strange and bittersweet unrequited love can be. As the protagonist leaves the train along with the old man, another young girl, Himari, enters and immediately notices Nayujin, the boy's crush. She greets her and strikes up a conversation. The group chat is buzzing with excitement, surprised to learn that Nayujin has a friend, and eager to discover more about her. Himari, noticing her friend's blushing face, curiously asks why she looks so flustered. Nayujin admits that she had been thrilled when someone expressed interest in talking to her and playing games together, but now feels embarrassed about how the situation unfolded. Her confession leaves the group stunned, wanting to somehow call the protagonist back, but by now, he's already walking home, disappointed at having missed his chance. After 3 days, including the weekend, the protagonist finally gets another chance to sit next to his crush. Their previous interaction ended awkwardly, so he wasn't expecting her to sit near him again. This puzzles him, and he wonders why she chose the seat beside him. He briefly considers that it might be because it was the only available seat, but dismisses the idea, knowing it wouldn't be convenient for her to sit there. He's convinced no one would willingly sit next to him. Although he wants to clear up the tension between them by confessing his feelings, he can't bring himself to do so just yet. Meanwhile, Nayujin, still embarrassed about thinking he was talking to her during their last encounter, tries to maintain her composure. Despite her embarrassment, she looks forward to interacting with him through the game they were supposed to play. Their occasional glances at each other don't go unnoticed by the other passengers. A university student on the train is convinced they both have secret crushes on one another, while an office lady finds it odd that Nayujin, being young, always appears so serious. The office lady tries to figure out the puzzle of their relationship, though it only leaves her with a headache, while the manager feels his blood pressure rising from the tension. The university student stays calm, suggesting that the situation can't be solved by simply calling it a misunderstanding, a statement the office lady quickly agrees with. When the manager inquires about what they're discussing, the office lady explains that they initially thought the girl had feelings for the boy, but now believe they were mistaken. The university student adds that Nayujin was just embarrassed by misinterpreting the boy's gesture and wasn't hiding any feelings. From his perspective, the boy is likely confused, as men tend to remember these small details. The group worries that if the boy tries to confess his feelings, he might face a harsh rejection, which would deeply hurt him. However, the manager remains hopeful, certain that they make the perfect couple. The office lady, too, believes there's more to Nayujin's actions and hopes the boy will pick up on the subtle signals. Apologizing for not realizing it sooner, the university student comments that he hadn't understood how frequently sitting next to someone on the train could be a sign of affection. His remark flusters both the manager and the office lady, with the manager hurriedly clarifying that he has a family, and the office lady insists she's not doing anything intentionally. Returning to the topic of the protagonist's unspoken feelings, the office lady expresses concern that the boy might have misinterpreted their previous encounter. The university student, ever hopeful, believes they both harbor secret feelings for one another. He reflects on how, just when it seemed like they were getting closer, some unknown force kept pulling them apart. By this point, the manager grows tired of the conversation, but the others ignore him. The office lady remarks that love is often filled with misunderstandings, adding that everything can't always go smoothly. The manager is confused by her comment, while the university student agrees, stating that the girl's feelings are difficult to read, whereas the boy's emotions are much clearer. Noticing how troubled they all are by the situation, the manager declares that he will take matters into his own hands and solve the problem. While this unfolds, the protagonist is lost in self-criticism, calling himself a coward for being unable to even start a conversation with her. Despite now having mutual interests to discuss, and noticing her excitement at the prospect of talking to him, he wonders if she still sees him as just another stranger on the train. He envies people like Saito from the soccer team, thinking how much easier things would be if he were as confident or had interesting stories to share. Instead, he feels trapped in his fear, unable to move forward. As these thoughts swirl in his mind, the silence is broken by the university student, who points out something to the office lady. They notice Naryujin's reflection in the window, holding a book with what looks like a note. The protagonist, curious, also notices it, and is shocked to see that the note seems to say she likes him too. Just as he starts to react, the manager interrupts by revealing that it's only the title of the book she's reading. Frustrated, the manager updates their group chat, mentioning that he's reading the same love novel and feels stuck in the middle of their situation. The office lady responds, asking why he's so invested in their love lives. The protagonist, heart pounding, feels relieved to have avoided a massive misunderstanding. The university student, though, remains cautious, pointing out that just because someone reads a love story, it doesn't necessarily mean they're in love. The protagonist reminds himself that she's just another student who rides the same train, and she might not even notice him. He realizes that he needs to stop living in a fantasy and find the courage to speak to her. Meanwhile, Naryujin glances at him from the side, disappointed to find him looking away. At school, her friend Himari warns her to be more careful when reading while walking and asks her about the novel she's reading. Naryujin explains that it's about a man and a woman who take the same train to school every day. She adds that while it might not mean anything to the man, it's something special to her. She wishes she could thank him, as she feels an attraction to him, even though they've never spoken. Himari notices how personal Naryujin's words sound, but Naryujin quickly clarifies that she's only talking about the book's main characters. Her friends remain suspicious, but Naryujin insists that, unlike the stories, she's very aware of her situation. Meanwhile, the three other passengers meet after getting off the train, still trying to figure out if Naryujin is secretly in love with the protagonist, and just waiting for him to make the first move. Hikichi finds himself awake in the dead of night, feeling a surge of disappointment for having forgotten his English homework. The thought of failing the subject weighs heavily on his mind, and he knows that unless he completes the assignment correctly, his grades could suffer. But despite the exhaustion settling in, he remains determined not to miss the morning train. His mind isn't just focused on academics, though. There's another motivation driving him forward. No matter how tired he may be, Hikichi refuses to miss the chance to ride the same train as the girl he's been noticing. The next morning, as Hikichi rides the train, three passengers watch with surprise as Naryujin sits motionless while Hikichi sleeps peacefully against her shoulder. When he stirs, he is startled by the realization of where his head has been resting and immediately pulls away, apologizing profusely. Naryujin reassures him in a soft whisper that it's okay, but Hikichi is still in disbelief, his mind racing at the thought of what just happened. He desperately hopes he didn't embarrass himself by drooling on her. Meanwhile, both of their hearts beat rapidly, while the surrounding passengers remain dumbfounded by the scene. The office lady is the first to break the silence, muttering in disbelief about how brazen young people have become, recalling how all she had done was gently nudge an old man. The manager shares her unease, commenting on how strange it all feels, but the university student among them has a different perspective. He brushes off their concerns, saying there's no point in comparing the mundane experience of commuter trains to the youthful energy they just witnessed. As for Hikichi, he can't stop freaking out over how strange his behavior was. He's deeply worried that Naoyujin might decide never to sit next to him again. Desperate not to let that happen, he forces himself to stay awake, fearing he might fall asleep once more and lean against her shoulder. Despite his best efforts, sleepiness overtakes him, causing him to sway uncontrollably, and the passengers around him eagerly anticipate whether he'll give in again. Secretly, they all hope to witness the same moment once more, but before anything happens, Hikichi jolts awake when the next station's announcement plays. He quickly scans his surroundings, relieved that his stop is still far off, but frustrated to realize that he had zoned out again, though this time he's certain he wasn't leaning on Naoyujin. The situation continues to grow more challenging for Hikichi, as the warm, swaying train makes it impossible to stay alert, no matter how tired he is. But then, an idea strikes him. Maybe he's overthinking it. Instead of forcing himself to stay awake, he now plans to just avoid the problem entirely by leaning against the window. With that thought, he soon drifts back into sleep, much to the disappointment of the observing passengers. The manager frowns at Hikichi's attempt to be gentlemanly, while the office lady shakes her head, believing that manners shouldn't be his top priority. The university student, however, remains unfazed by the situation, much to the office lady's frustration. Seeing her irritation, the student calmly reassures her, hinting that they should remain patient. At the other's puzzled expressions, he explains that after the tunnel, the train hits a sharp curve that will naturally cause Hikichi to lean toward Naoyujin, whether he's asleep or not. The three passengers light up with excitement, eagerly awaiting the inevitable moment when inertia would bring the two closer once more. As the tunnel ends, they can barely contain themselves, watching intently as Hikichi starts to sway toward her, Naoyujin just as nervous. But just as they are about to witness the moment, they, too, are thrown off balance by the train's movement. The office lady, in a panic, accidentally pushes her arm into the manager's neck, while the university student struggles to text updates in their group chat. Amidst the chaos, Hikichi apologizes again for leaning on Naoyujin, and the office lady is left frustrated, having missed the crucial moment. The university student points out the absurdity of the situation as he notices the manager practically choking from the office lady's misplaced arm, barely holding himself up against the opposite window. Meanwhile, Hikichi is now wide awake, realizing that he has repeated the same mistake yet again. He has no memory of how he ended up leaning on Naoyujin, and his mind races with worry that she might think poorly of him. Fearing that she'll change her seat next time, he tries not to dwell on the thought. But before he can overthink the situation, Naoyujin gently taps his shoulder, letting him know they've reached his station. Startled out of his thoughts, Hikichi thanks her sincerely before hurrying to leave the train, still amazed that she actually spoke to him. Despite the regularity of their shared commute, the moment feels surreal to him. As Hikichi exits, Naoyujin finds herself wondering if he'll think she's strange for noticing him and knowing where he gets off. On the other hand, Hikichi is thrilled, realizing that she's been paying attention to him all along. The gossiping passengers are equally delighted by the girl's subtle attention toward the boy. The office lady, now fully caught up in the moment, asks excitedly if anyone managed to record the interaction, only for the university student to remind her that filming such moments isn't allowed. Hikichi begins his day by reading his horoscope, which informs him that those born under the Cancer sign have a chance to form a connection with someone nearby. This vague prediction leaves him anxious as he boards the train, unsure if it will come true, given how many people share his star sign. Yet, despite his uncertainty, there's a lingering sense that something is different today. The atmosphere feels charged, as if the other passengers are somehow in tune with his unease. Settling into his usual seat, Hikichi mentally prepares to apologize to the girl for yesterday's incident, hoping that if she sits beside him, it won't be awkward. He keeps repeating to himself that it won't be. But as the train speeds forward, the horoscope's prediction swirls in his mind, intensifying his nervousness. He's even surprised by how fast the train seems to be moving today, as though time itself is pushing him towards something inevitable. The odd feeling lingers, and although part of him knows it might just be a coincidence, he can't shake the newfound courage building within him. When he feels someone sit beside him, Hikichi turns, heart pounding, ready to address the girl about yesterday. However, instead of seeing her, he is met with the sight of the old man who had sat beside him once before. The surprise is so strong that his face visibly drops, which doesn't go unnoticed by the other passengers who are secretly observing him. 3 of them, including the manager, exchange curious glances, wondering why Hikichi seems disappointed. The manager, puzzled, doesn't understand why the boy seems so upset to see the old man, who, to them, appears to be nothing more than an innocent third wheel. The man even has the same keychain as Hikichi and the girl, a sign of their shared love for the online game Genshin. As Hikichi wrestles with his emotions, the old man, unaware of the boy's inner turmoil, cheerfully starts a conversation. He mentions that he, too, is a Cancer and has read the same horoscope for the day. Meanwhile, in the group chat, the office lady is growing frustrated. She's annoyed that the old man has interrupted Hikichi's opportunity to speak to his crush, and she's not shy about expressing her anger. In contrast, the manager sees nothing wrong with the situation, while the university students agree, viewing the old man as harmless. They're more curious about what Hikichi will do next. Then, they notice the girl standing awkwardly in a corner, her face flushed with embarrassment. Nayujin, the girl, is too nervous to sit beside Hikichi, and her hesitation only fuels the curiosity of the passengers. The office lady guesses that the girl isn't angry or upset about yesterday, given how close she's standing to him. But the university student points out that the situation is now complicated. With the old man there, Hikichi can't afford to be rude, especially since the girl is nearby and can hear everything. They all seem to believe Hikichi is handling the situation well, bonding with the old man over their shared love for Genshin. However, the university student sees a problem. If Hikichi and the old man keep getting along so well, the girl might mistakenly think they are close friends, which could lead her to give up her seat to him in the future. This possibility worries the passengers, with the office lady commenting that their source of morning excitement might end if the old man starts regularly sitting next to Hikichi. Still, they all know the boy is likely still nervous, trying to make sense of the unexpected turn of events. Just then, the old man asks Hikichi if he played the second act of a time-limited event in Genshin. The mention of his favorite game instantly perks Hikichi up, much to the displeasure of the group chat, who are not thrilled by how comfortable the old man and Hikichi are getting. The office lady then points out that Nayujin is visibly shaking. She's desperate to join in on the conversation but is too shy to speak. The university student assumes she's shaking because she's afraid of losing her spot next to Hikichi permanently. Meanwhile, Hikichi is deep in conversation with the old man, who mentions how it's his first time finding someone who shares the same favorite character. Hikichi, smiling brightly, says it's his first time talking about his favorite character like this too, and he feels as if he's confessing something personal. The university student, however, disagrees, while the office lady sees it as a kind of confession and starts to worry about how Nayujin must be feeling. The girl, dying to join the conversation, watches silently, while the group is sure she's getting frustrated by Hikichi's focus on the game. The old man then makes a surprising offer, suggesting they play the game together on the train next time. He asks Hikichi if he always takes the same train, hoping to sync their schedules. This makes the manager uneasy, and he fears that the old man would take this seat beside Hikichi permanently. The office lady is now genuinely worried that the budding love story between Hikichi and Nayujin will never bloom. All eyes are on Hikichi, eagerly awaiting his response. Before Hikichi can answer, Nayujin, in a burst of nervous energy, turns around and almost shouts for him to wait. But before anyone can react, the old man reveals that he only rides this train a few days each month, putting everyone's minds at ease. Hikichi is startled to see Nayujin has actually turned around, and she, now mortified by her own outbursts, quickly turns back, embarrassed. The group chat is buzzing, shocked by how the old man has unintentionally toyed with everyone's emotions. The next day, Nayujin keeps her distance, standing far away from Hikichi, too embarrassed by the events to sit next to him again. As Nayujin settles back into her seat beside the protagonist, the air between them grows thick with unspoken tension. Neither dares to look at the other, their nerves apparent to everyone in the train car. Yet, for once, the other passengers seem less interested in their awkwardness. The enticing aroma of sausage-egg muffins fills the air, diverting attention. The office lady, curious, wonders who brought the delicious food aboard, while a nearby university student simply comments on how good it smells. Though the office lady doesn't mind the presence of food, she's slightly annoyed that it's pulling her focus away from observing the sweet interactions between Nahyujin and the boy. As if on cue, the university student points out that the couple seems even more fidgety than usual. The manager, defensive, quickly states that he hasn't done anything, to which the student reassures him that the muffins aren't the issue. What's puzzling him is the couple's heightened nervousness. Suddenly, the silence is broken by a loud stomach growl, catching everyone's attention. Nahyujin, feeling mortified, initially thinks the sound came from her, but soon realizes with relief that she isn't the culprit. Instead, a girl sitting in front of them sheepishly admits that she's the one whose stomach made the noise. Both Nahyujin and the boy are relieved, though she still regrets skipping breakfast due to her dieting. Meanwhile, Hikichi shares in the embarrassment, though the situation would be far less awkward if Nahyujin, his crush, weren't sitting so close. The three passengers observing the scene, the office lady, university student, and manager, are delighted by how the couple is doing everything they can to keep their hunger hidden from one another. The university student muses that this is just part of the excitement of new love, while the office lady eagerly notes they'll need to pay closer attention to the pair in the future. Out of nowhere, the office lady groans, causing the others to glance at her in concern. She quickly explains that the muffin smell is getting to her as well, and she's frustrated that her stomach might betray her, potentially ruining her enjoyment of the unfolding romance before her, which she now likens to a staged performance. The university student admits that he's starting to feel hungry too, but the manager assures them that the muffin's aroma is fading as they cool down. Hikichi, for his part, hopes he can stave off his hunger as well. But just then, another girl on the train begins talking about her lunch plans, and a boy sitting nearby starts adding items to her menu. The temptation of food becomes too much for everyone. The office lady humorously complains that talking about lunch at this hour should be illegal, and even the manager starts to succumb to his own hunger. As the others struggle to control their growing cravings, Nahyujin suddenly remembers the pack of gummies in her bag. She pulls it out, offering a glimmer of hope, only to find the pack empty. The passengers are collectively disappointed. At the same time, the manager notices Hikichi retrieving his lunchbox. Though the idea of food excites the others, the manager is concerned that if Hikichi eats now, he'll have nothing left for lunch, and worse, the smell will torture everyone even more. Hikichi, ignoring the manager's warnings, opens his lunchbox, releasing the tantalizing scent of curry into the air. The passengers, already hungry, are hit with another wave of desire. The office lady feels like today's train ride is nothing short of torture, and the university student remarks that some of the passengers may not be able to bear the situation much longer. Despite their own growing hunger, they're all still fixated on how the couple will handle the moment. Nahyujin, struggling to keep her composure, knows that she can't hold out much longer against the smell of curry. The tension rises as everyone waits to see whose stomach will betray them next. Finally, the manager speaks up, reminding the others that as adults, they shouldn't encourage the situation out of their own amusement. They should act responsibly and try to help the couple rather than enjoy their discomfort. His words make the others feel a bit guilty for getting so caught up in the drama. Then, in a surprising turn, the manager reveals that he was the one who brought the food aboard the train. His confession shocks the office lady and the university student, and they begin to playfully argue over his decision. As they bicker, Nahyujin pours herself some tea, which gives Hikichi the idea to drink water as well. But before either can find relief, both their stomachs growl loudly, followed by a chorus of growls from the other passengers. The office lady, frustrated, points out how everyone is suffering because of the food, while the manager sheepishly admits that the curry smell probably isn't helping. The absurdity of the situation makes everyone laugh, easing the tension between Nahyujin and Hikichi. For once, they aren't shy in front of each other, sharing a brief smile amidst the chaos. When the train finally stops, the nearby McDonald's and curry shops are flooded with hungry passengers, driven by the ordeal they all just endured.
The station was as busy as ever, and when Nayu entered the train, She noticed Hickey helping some elderly passengers with their luggage. The old lady thanked him for his kindness and for giving up his seat. Watching this, Nayu's thoughts wandered, wondering if Hickey would do the same for her. The thought made her blush as a small smile crept onto her face. She stared at Hickey, lost in her thoughts. The train pulled out of the station, and Hickey and Nayu now stood beside each other, both doing their best to avoid eye contact. Hickey felt a pang of disappointment that he couldn't sit next to her, but standing so close somehow felt different, even nice. He was used to only seeing her side profile, but today things were different. Trying to act casual, he glanced at her reflection in the window. Just then, he realized Nayu had been staring too. Both of them panicked, immediately turning away. Hickey's heart pounded in his chest as he realized how close he had been to getting caught. Meanwhile, the university student and the office lady had already noticed what was happening and smiled to themselves, entertained by the pair's innocent first love. The manager, however, couldn't see anything and demanded to know what was going on. The office lady quickly warned him that turning around would blow their cover. Hickey and Nayu would notice immediately. Reluctantly, the manager agreed, and the three observers tried to be more careful. Hickey, meanwhile, was having the same struggle. He kept stealing glances at Nayu but fought to keep his composure. He told himself it was natural to stare, after all, she was a pretty girl. Still, his heart wouldn't calm down. Nayu, on the other hand, was blushing even harder as she started noticing little details about Hickey, like how much taller he was and the way his features looked up close. Her face turned redder, and she quickly looked away. The old manager, unable to resist, turned around for a quick peek. As he looked at Hickey and Nayu, a wave of nostalgia hit him, reminding him of his younger days when he used to write songs for girls in his class. But before he could reminisce any further, Hickey and Nayu noticed his reflection in the window and froze in shock. The manager quickly turned back around, pretending nothing had happened, while the other passengers quietly panicked. The passengers began texting each other about the situation. The manager assured the others that Hickey and Nayu hadn't noticed him. The university student agreed, though he couldn't help but laugh at how oblivious the pair still were. The office lady chuckled in disbelief that the two hadn't yet realized they were staring at each other. It was then the university student pieced everything together. He realized today was different because, instead of sitting side by side, Hickey and Nayu were standing with a mirror-like window in front of them. That reflection would inevitably make them notice each other's glances. His face paled as he realized something else. They were all standing right behind the couple. Hickey and Nayu could see their reflections too. Quickly, he texted the others, warning them to stop staring before they were caught. Meanwhile, Hickey and Nayu kept stealing shy glances at each other, only to meet each other's eyes in the reflection again and again. Each time, they panicked, hearts racing, unsure of what to do next. Hickey still couldn't keep calm, even though he had sat next to Nayu so many times before. This was the first time they were face to face, thanks to their reflection in the window, and he couldn't believe it. He kept sneaking glances at her, but every time their eyes met, he realized Nayu was watching him too. At first, he thought it was a coincidence, but it happened too many times to ignore. The office lady and university student also noticed and wondered if this would finally be the moment Hickey and Nayu realized their feelings. Suddenly, Nayu turned toward Hickey. His heart raced, thinking she might be staring at him, but she quickly turned back to look at something else. Hickey followed her gaze and spotted a large praying mantis inside the train. The three passengers quietly warned each other to stay calm until the bug flew away, though an older man nearby had no idea what they were talking about. Hickey felt a wave of relief when he realized he had panicked over nothing. Nayu had only been looking at the bug. Meanwhile, the office lady was annoyed, complaining about how the conversation had suddenly shifted to a bug. As the others discussed it, Hickey was still trying to settle his nerves when the old lady he had helped earlier spoke up. She thanked him and mentioned that her stop was coming up. Then, to his horror, she suggested that he and Nayu could sit together again. Hickey turned red, quickly clarifying that he was alone. The old lady smiled knowingly and said she thought the two of them were together. Both Hickey and Nayu turned bright red with embarrassment, silently wishing the conversation would end. Nayu hoped the old lady would stop talking altogether. With a kind smile, the old lady apologized and, before stepping off the train, told them to enjoy the rest of their journey. Now sitting together again, Hiki and Nayu avoided each other's gaze, their hearts pounding uncontrollably. No matter how hard they tried, staying calm felt impossible. Nayu thought to herself that Hiki probably hadn't noticed her staring earlier, even though a stranger had. She was relieved, thinking that if he had noticed, he might have been creeped out. Meanwhile, Hiki was lost in his own thoughts, still wondering why the old lady thought they were a couple in the first place. It was another busy day on the train. 2 elementary school girls were chatting nearby, their voices full of excitement. One girl was giggling while talking about a boy in her class. Her friend, surprised, asked if she was now sitting next to the boy in class. The girl giggled even more, unable to hide her happiness. Hiki and Nayu sat in front of the girls, quietly listening to the conversation. Hiki smiled unintentionally, understanding the girl's situation, while Nayu was equally focused on the gossip. It reminded her of her own similar experience when a classmate had asked to switch seats with her. Without realizing it, both of them were smiling, lost in the same thoughts, those heartwarming moments of first love. They could relate to the girls' chatter, and for once, they weren't the center of attention. The 3 usual passengers, an office lady, a university student, and the manager, stood close by. Today was different for them. Instead of observing Hiki and Nayu's awkward moments, they were watching the pair quietly listen to someone else's story. The 3 exchanged amused smiles and texted each other as usual. Meanwhile, the 2 girls were completely engrossed in their conversation. The friend asked if the girl planned to confess her feelings to the boy. Blushing, she admitted she was just happy sitting beside him and watching from afar. Hiki and Nayu listened closely, and the girl's words hit them harder than they expected. Even though they didn't know what the other was thinking, both felt the same way. Neither had high expectations or thoughts of dating, but the little moments they shared were enough to make them happy. They just wanted to cherish those simple, everyday interactions. The 3 passengers continued texting each other, smiling at the thought of young love. The university student commented on how even elementary school kids were already falling in love these days. Then, the conversation between the 2 girls took a turn. The girl compared her feelings for the boy to a small flower that she wanted to nurture over time. Her friend, however, dismissed the idea. She warned that if the girl stayed content with just sitting next to him, someone else might swoop in and take him away. Hiki and Nayu's faces turned gloomy as they processed the harsh truth behind the young girl's words. Even the 3 passengers noticed the sudden shift in their expressions. Nayu tried to calm herself, thinking that love has its own pace for different people. Hiki silently agreed, though they didn't say a word to each other. The university student sent a text to the others, saying this could be the stimulus Hiki and Nayu needed. He pointed out that reality can be harsh, and it's not uncommon for people who love each other to never actually get together. He joked that for the 2 to move forward, they might need this kind of wake-up call. Meanwhile, the manager was still in disbelief that elementary school kids were this emotionally mature. The girl continued, saying that showing off her feelings might not be a good idea. She explained that when boys find out someone likes them, they tend to get pushy and act all high and mighty. The manager, shocked, thought to himself that it was terrifying how much these young kids already seemed to understand. The girl then added that she just wanted the boy to feel a sense of danger, not to get too comfortable just because she had shared a kiss with him. The 3 passengers panicked, realizing these girls were far ahead in the dating game. Hiki and Nayu shivered in their seats, overwhelmed by the thought that kids this young were already sharing kisses, while they couldn't even express their feelings to each other. The office lady texts her friend, saying she kind of likes this girl but agrees that the girl was trying to act too mature for her age. Her friend then asks if she prefers being the one spoiled in a relationship or the one doing the spoiling. Her friend adds that the most fun people to be with are the ones who shower you with presents and celebrate every moment. This revelation leaves the 3 passengers stunned. The university student points out that the girl was just pretending to be more innocent than her friend. The office lady texts back, reminding them that the girl had claimed she was content with just sitting next to the boy in class. The next moment, the innocent girl bursts into laughter, saying it's cute when boys mistakenly think they're the ones in control. The three passengers go out of their minds, realizing these elementary school girls are far ahead of what they ever imagined. The university student grows concerned, fearing that Hiki and Neiyu might take the wrong inspiration from these kids. Meanwhile, Neiyu and Hiki sit in stunned silence, unable to comprehend what they just heard. The university student texts the others, joking that this elementary school romance talk is too much for Neiyu and Hiki to handle. Suddenly, Hiki and Neiyu both pull out a pen and diary at the same time. Their pride stings, but they convince themselves that age doesn't matter. These elementary girls are simply more advanced. Determined to learn, they start taking notes on the girl's romantic techniques for winning over the boy sitting next to her. The three passengers are amazed at the sight of Hiki and Neiyu eagerly scribbling in their notebooks. The office lady happily declares that it's good they've decided to swallow their pride and grow from this experience. But the university student disagrees. The argument between the two heats up, and they nearly start shouting at each other through their texts. Hiki and Neiyu notice the growing tension, watching the two passengers' annoyed expressions and wondering what they're so worked up about. While the passengers are busy arguing, the elementary girl asks her friend if she's still playing around with the boy like before. Her friend replies, admitting she's not good at playing games. Curious, the first girl asks how she managed to get the boy to say he likes her without having to say it back. Neiyu and Hiki freeze, growing nervous as they eagerly wait for the answer. The passengers, almost jumping out of their seats in anticipation, are shushed by the office lady, who tells them to stay quiet and listen. Finally, the girl reveals her secret. She was on lunch duty and secretly gave the boy an extra piece of meat. The revelation stuns everyone. Hiki and Neiyu immediately jot the technique down in their notebooks while the passengers stare in disbelief, unable to process that these romantic masters are just elementary school girls. Even after taking diligent notes, nothing really changes the next day for Neiyu and Hiki. The only noticeable difference is that they decide to sit a little closer to each other. The three passengers, watching the pair, sigh in exasperation. They realize that despite all the inspiration, the two haven't grown up at all. It was Golden Week, and the atmosphere in the trains felt noticeably different. Hiki sat with his friend, Kiri, who still looked half asleep. Kiri muttered that 9 a.m. practice felt way too early, but Hiki smiled, saying he enjoyed starting early because the train was always calm at this hour. Kiri was shocked to hear that Hiki caught this early train regularly. Hiki teased him, saying that Kiri was usually the one who skipped practice during Golden Week and asked if his girlfriend was okay with him coming. Kiri shrugged it off, saying he just wanted to hang out with the guys today. During the holidays, even the usual trains felt different. They were more crowded than normal, filled with passengers far more varied than the usual students and office workers. All of this was still within expectations, but Hiki couldn't help feeling gloomy. Neiyu wasn't here today. The three familiar passengers, an office lady, a university student, and the manager, noticed this change too. They observed that Hiki looked unusually lonely and quickly deduced that the boy next to him must be a friend from his school club. Meanwhile, Hiki asked Kiri if he was still dating the girl from the convenience store. Kiri casually replied that he was now dating a college student. The three passengers were surprised. Clearly, Kiri was a different breed compared to Hiki. Hiki, equally shocked, asked Kiri how he even managed to meet a college girl. Instead of answering, Kiri turned the question around, asking why Hiki was suddenly acting weird and bringing up romance. Hiki panicked, and Kiri laughed, saying Hiki usually stayed quiet whenever the guys at school talked about love. He thought Hiki just wasn't into that sort of thing. Flustered, Hiki denied it, trying to explain that he wasn't uninterested and had actually experienced his fair share of these things. This was far from the truth, and the three passengers silently cringed at Hiki's desperate attempts to save face. However, the university student defended him, texting that sometimes guys say this kind of stuff. Some dress well, others act tough, and some arm themselves with knowledge because for guys, it's a cutthroat world. Protecting your pride and dignity is a battle every man fights. If you're asked about experience, you can't just say no. Sometimes you need to puff yourself up and face the challenge head-on, even if the odds are against you. He spoke with so much emotion that it felt like he was standing up for guys everywhere. Kiri, impressed, asked if Hickey was really playing around like that and suggested he share some advice. Hickey froze, realizing he had dug himself into a huge hole. In a panic, he blurted out that movies or aquariums were great date spots. The office lady cringed, knowing he was completely making things up. Surprisingly, Kiri thought going back to the basics was a great idea. Emboldened by Kiri's response, Hickey doubled down, saying a foreign car, rooftop restaurants, and wine were also important for dates. The office lady winced. Hickey was going way too far and was surely about to get caught. But Kiri, once again, seemed impressed. He remarked that Hickey was pretty mature and asked if he put a lot of thought into things like birthday presents. He pressed further, asking about the best way Hickey had surprised a girl before. Hickey started to sweat, and the three passengers watched with a mix of dread and amusement, sure that his lie would unravel. Nervously, Hickey stammered that holding hands might be the way to go. The office lady and university student tried not to laugh, cringing at his answer, but they couldn't deny it was adorable. To everyone's shock, Kiri bought it again. He agreed, saying that once you've been in a relationship for a while, even holding hands can feel meaningful. The passengers couldn't believe it. Hickey was actually getting away with this lie. But then Kiri suddenly turned serious and asked how long Hickey was going to keep up his act. Hickey panicked, trying to deny it, but Kiri called him an idiot and said he'd known him for too long to be fooled. He asked why Hickey was telling such elaborate lies. Hickey smiled sheepishly and apologized, finally telling Kiri the truth. He confessed that he'd been feeling embarrassed lately, outdone by an elementary school girl. Kiri blinked, not understanding, but the passengers knew the full story. They almost teared up as they realized how much this had been weighing on Hickey. Hickey admitted there was someone he really liked. At first, he only noticed her because they sat on the same train every day, but then something changed. Slowly, he realized he couldn't take his eyes off her. He started tearing up as he confessed that he didn't even know her name or if she had a boyfriend. All he knew was that he thought about her constantly but couldn't muster the courage to speak to her. Every day, she sat right beside him, and every day he did nothing. Hickey poured his heart out, saying he had no experience with this sort of thing. He had no idea how to approach her and begged Kiri to teach him how to talk to a girl he had never spoken to before. Kiri, caught off guard, admitted that he didn't have a clue either. He said Hickey was asking the wrong person for help. The passengers were stunned, not expecting this turn of events. Hickey was shocked too. He had assumed Kiri, of all people, would have the answers. But Kiri admitted that this situation was completely out of his league. The only thing he could teach Hickey was how to flirt with girls. Kiri confesses that he often has to go through multiple girls before finding just one who's interested. He explains how difficult it is, especially when all those girls look him in the eye as if he's some garbage human being. He admits that kind of rejection is enough to break anyone's heart. Hickey wasn't expecting this and starts to wonder if the same thing would happen to him if he tried to talk to Neyu. Kiri continues, saying this is exactly why he only dates girls who know it's nothing serious. He tries to make Hickey understand that their love lives are completely different, and comparing the two would be pointless. Hickey smiles, realizing the truth in Kiri's words, and apologizes for lying again. Kiri teases him, joking that losing to an elementary school girl is still worse. Kiri then smiles and tells Hickey not to worry or feel the need to show off. He assures Hickey that he's cool just as he is, and if Hickey has realized this, then the girl he likes has probably already noticed that about him too. Embarrassed, Hickey starts blushing and tries to deny it, but Kiri cuts him off. He admits he isn't sure if things will work out for Hickey, but if they don't, Hickey will at least have his shoulder to cry on. Hickey is grateful and thanks Kiri for his support. The three passengers agree that Kiri is surprisingly perceptive and mature for his age, and it's no wonder he's popular at school. As they arrive at their station, they start walking together. Before leaving, Kiri says he'll take a later train tomorrow. Then, with a knowing smile, he adds that if Hickey is lucky, the girl he likes might just be on this train at the exact same time. Kiri grins, saying he doesn't want to interfere with anyone's love life. Hickey panics, realizing that Kiri had figured everything out, while the three passengers text each other in shock. They still can't understand how Kiri managed to piece everything together. Hickey and Nayu were finally sitting together on the train after a whole week, both still blushing and nervous. The three passengers, the office lady, the university student, and the manager, were excited to see them back together and eagerly watched to see what would happen next. As the train stopped at a station, some passengers began leaving, and the group noticed someone had forgotten their phone on a seat. The university student tried calling after the guy, but he was already gone. Concerned, both Hickey and Nayu reached for the phone, but Hickey grabbed it first. Without hesitation, he rushed off the train to return it. Hickey managed to catch up with the man and hand over the phone. The three passengers silently cheered for him, sharing their excitement through texts. However, before Hickey could react, the train doors closed right in front of him. Standing in shock, he watched the train leave the station without him. The three passengers groaned in disappointment, feeling their day had been ruined. The university student mentioned how horrifying Hickey's expression looked just when the train pulled away, and they couldn't help but notice Nayu sitting alone now, looking lost. The manager, meanwhile, texted that he regretted not being the one to return the phone. Nayu sat quietly, wondering if Hickey was already waiting for the next train. She hoped he wouldn't be late for school. On the platform, Hickey was on the verge of tears, disappointed that he had ruined the day after finally sitting next to her. Determined, he promised himself that tomorrow would be different, and everything would go as planned. But the next day turned out even worse. This time, Ganshin guy sat next to Hickey and started chatting. The three passengers were visibly annoyed, but there was nothing they could do. The office lady texted that Hickey should at least say something to Ganshin and save a seat for Nayu. Hickey, feeling helpless, said nothing. He was too kind to ask the guy to leave, even though he felt disappointed. The following day, Hickey decided to leave earlier to secure his seat. This time, two elderly men stood in front of him, glancing at the empty seat beside him. The men began politely arguing, each insisting the other take the seat. Hickey tried to ignore them, but when he heard one of them say, if only there were two seats, he couldn't take it anymore. He stood up and offered them his seat. The three passengers were disappointed, but they understood why he had to do it. Still, the university student commented that while it was something a boy like Hickey would do, his kindness or lack of assertiveness might hurt his chances in romance. Later, at school, Hickey shared his problem with his friends during lunch. One of them suggested he should just ignore everyone and pretend to sleep. Hickey tried to explain his situation, but Kiri, one of his friends, laughed and said Hickey was a terrible actor. He wouldn't be able to pull it off. Another friend said Hickey was too nice, but Hickey felt differently. He admitted that he was having second thoughts about always giving up his seat. Still, he couldn't bear the thought of Nayu seeing him as uncool. When Kiri asked how giving up his seat made him look cool, Hickey insisted that being a gentleman was cool. His friends smiled at his innocence but didn't say anything. That day, Hickey sat on the train, thinking about how many people rode it every day. He and Nayu were just two strangers among the crowd. The thought crossed his mind that maybe there was no unspoken promise between them, that she would always sit next to him. One day, she might stop showing up altogether. That day could even be tomorrow. Hickey remembered Kiri's advice and knew he had to say something eventually, but until Nayu boarded the train, there was nothing he could do. He just hoped to stay calm and be himself. Today, he silently wished that she would sit next to him, and for once, his wish came true. Nayu approached and sat down beside him. The three passengers silently cheered for them. Hickey started to sweat nervously as he tried to keep his composure. Though the three passengers were still concerned, they promised not to interfere this time. The university student texted that, for today, they would make sure the two of them could sit and enjoy their time together. If anyone tried to get in the way, they would handle it. The tension between Hickey and Nayu continued to build as they both tried to act casual. Even the three passengers could feel their nervousness, as though they could hear the two kids' hearts pounding out of their chests. The passengers were determined to ensure nothing disturbed Hiki and Neyu today, but putting that resolve into action was another matter. As much as they were prepared to protect the pair, they quietly wondered what exactly they would do if something actually happened. Meanwhile, Hiki and Neyu were happy to be sitting next to each other after such a long time, but breaking the ice was proving to be a challenge. The three passengers, busy arguing over their strategy, failed to notice what was happening between the two. Hiki reached into his backpack, and as he moved, his elbow brushed against Neyu's. Both of them jolted upright in surprise, their faces instantly turning red. Neyu couldn't understand why she was reacting so strongly, but she felt unusually aware of his presence. Hiki, on the other hand, could feel his palms sweating and wondered if she could hear his heartbeat racing. Sitting so close together felt overwhelming, and for a brief moment, they were both relieved that they went to different schools. Being near each other was more intense than they'd imagined. Neither of them knew how to break the awkward silence, so they left it up to fate. Today, however, fate seemed to be on their side, and the three passengers were more than ready to help. Just then, the train stopped at the next station, and the man who had forgotten his phone the other day got up to leave. The three passengers immediately recognized him and exchanged hurried texts, knowing what was coming. Their fears were realized when the man clumsily spilled a bunch of his belongings onto the floor. The three passengers panicked. Before Hiki could react and do something impulsive, they rushed to pick up the man's things, scrambling to gather everything as quickly as possible. Amid the commotion, a pen rolled near Hiki and Neyu's feet. Both of them bent down to grab it at the same time, and their hands suddenly touched. They froze, their faces flushing red once again. Before they could react, the three passengers swooped in, handing over the man's belongings with lightning speed. The situation was resolved before Hiki or Neyu had the chance to make things even more awkward. Finally, the clumsy man had left, but before they could even breathe a sigh of relief, two old men entered the train looking exhausted. The three passengers knew exactly what this meant. The old men would try to steal seats again. They watched helplessly as the old men approached, realizing there were no empty seats left. Suddenly, two other passengers raised their hands and offered their seats to the old men. The three observers were surprised, almost moved to tears, as they realized there were more strangers invested in the story, silently watching over the boy and the girl. The university student let out a relieved sigh, thinking that the worst was finally over. But their problems were far from done. The Ganshin guy came into view, walking straight toward them. Panic set in. The three debated whether they should talk to him about the game to try and distract him. Desperately, they hoped and prayed for someone to stop this menace. Just when it felt like the end, the Ganshin guy noticed someone else, another passenger with a Ganshin-themed phone cover. He immediately turned his attention to the man and began chatting about the game. The three turned to see who had saved them and were relieved to discover it was Kiri, another comrade in arms. Kiri had managed to distract the Ganshin guy, and the three silently thanked him for stepping in to save the day. With their confidence restored, they felt like they could finally make it through this ordeal. At last, the train reached the station. Hiki realized he had to get off and looked visibly disappointed, but there was nothing he could do. As he stood up to leave, Neyu looked gloomy too. The three onlookers were disheartened. After all their effort, it seemed like it was already over. But then, Neyu noticed something lying on the seat where Hiki had been sitting. The three immediately realized it was his student ID, and Neyu quickly caught on too. Meanwhile, as Hiki walked through the station, someone called his name. He turned around, surprised to see Neyu standing outside the train. The other passengers, now glued to the windows, watched anxiously as the long-awaited moment unfolded. Neyu handed Hiki his student ID, explaining that he had left it on his seat. Hiki blushed as he took the ID and thanked her. Neyu, nervous, replied that it was no problem. They stood there, staring at each other, unsure of what to say next. Just then, Neyu's friend, who was entering the train, called her name and asked what she was doing outside. Startled, Neyu turned around, shouting that she had to get back on the train. In the next moment, Hickey was left standing alone on the platform as the train departed with Nayu inside. The old man manager looked disappointed, but the university student and the office lady remained hopeful. This wasn't the end. The boy and the girl now knew each other's names. Nayu's friend had called her name in front of Hickey, and Nayu had seen Hickey's name on his student ID. Alright, that's a wrap for today. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. And if you're new here, sub before the algorithm forgets I exist. Drop your favorite moment in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.